I was just a boy when it began. But even as a boy, I could feel the heavens stirring. There were whispers in the streets of coming doom, of Babylon's advance. But there was also pride and the refusal to repent. The prophets wept. The Lord called. And later, we wept. Oh, how we wept by the rivers of Babylon. Where is God when kingdoms fall? When the holy city is breached? When the temple's gold is carried off in the hands of mockers? Where is the covenant when it seems the enemies of God dance in triumph? And who are we when the land that bore his name lies buried in ash and silence? These questions haunted my soul, not only in the fall of Jerusalem, but in the silence afterward. When the dust settled, when the captivity began, when our names were changed to fit their gods. Is exile the absence of God, or the place where he waits to be remembered? I feared God, not when I was taken, but when I realized he had been silent a long time, and we never noticed. I remember my first step into Babylon. The ground was heavier, as if it bore the weight of many gods. Their towers rose like defiance. Their idols glittered in the sun, cold and blind. I was offered a new life, new name, new wisdom, new loyalty. But how could I bow when my soul still mourned the ashes of the altar? I was not holy because I was strong. I was weak. But there was a flame inside me, something planted by God himself. They could take my homeland, but not my belonging. I belonged to the God of my fathers, the one who shuts the mouths of lions, who stands among flames, who reveals mysteries to the humble. I saw emperors tremble before dreams they couldn't understand. I watched men feast with stolen temple cups and the writing on the wall. And I learned, exile is not the end. It is the place of unveiling. In Babylon, I saw the power of the Most High, not in temples of stone, but in trembling silence, in fire that did not consume, in lions that bowed to a greater roar. There is no empire so great, no furnace so hot, no lion so hungry, that it can separate the faithful from the presence of God. I am Daniel, once a boy of Judah, now an old man under foreign kings. Yet in all my years, I have never seen the Lord forsake his own. Even when we were unfaithful, he remained. Even when our city burned, his promise stood. Even when the world forgot his name, he still called mine. So let this be my testimony. He rules, from everlasting to everlasting. The kingdoms of men rise and fall, but his kingdom is without end. The resolve of the remnant. They brought us in through the northern gate, the gate they reserved for tribute, for spoils of conquest. We were not prisoners in chains. We were offerings to the empire, a handful of young men chosen to represent the best of what was left of Judah. They called us vessels, but not vessels of the Lord. They dressed us in fine robes, fed us delicacies. They spoke to us in a tongue not our own, but expected us to learn theirs swiftly. They gave us new names, names whispered in honor of foreign gods. But I remembered my name, Daniel. God is my judge. They could rename me, but they could not rewrite the covenant written upon my bones. They could feed me their philosophies, but they couldn't feed me their gods. In my heart, I heard the question again. Who are you when no one remembers Jerusalem? Who are you when your people have bowed and the altar is dust? I looked around and saw eagerness in some, fear in others. Many believed this was a second chance, a path to survival, even greatness. But I didn't come to Babylon to be great. I came carrying a remnant of something sacred, and it trembled within me every time I was offered one. The king's table was full, but I saw another feast, a quieter one. Bread without leaven, a cup of remembrance. That is when the conviction began to form in me. Not a loud vow, but a still resolve. I will not defile myself. Not because the food was filthy, but because the spirit behind it demanded my silence. And I could not be silent. Not before the God who still watched me from heaven, even here, even in Babylon. It was not easy to ask for permission. They thought I was foolish, refusing the king's portion in favor of vegetables and water. What power is in such weakness? What strength in denying what others craved? But I knew the power was not in the food, it was in the obedience. If I could be faithful in this, small though it seemed, perhaps I would remember how to be faithful when the lions roared. God gave me favor in the eyes of the steward, and with it, he gave us strength. We were not weakened by our refusal. We were strengthened, clearer of mind, sounder in body, more rooted in purpose. After 10 days, it was undeniable. They saw it. We were stronger, brighter. But it was not food that did this. It was God. In the quiet of the nights, I would lift my eyes toward the east, imagining Jerusalem. The city was fallen, yes, but the covenant was not. The fire on the altar had gone out, but a flame still burned in my heart. I did not understand then what God was doing. I only knew I must not forget him, not in word, not in appetite, not in allegiance. Babylon wanted to change us slowly, gently, with golden ropes and silk chains. But I knew a silken chain is still a chain. So I resolved not to forget, and in my remembering I found strength, not my own, but his, the strength of the remnant, the strength of those who still tremble at his word, the strength of one who knows that even in exile, God still reigns. The God who reveals mysteries. There are nights, and there are nights when even kings cannot sleep, when the power they wear like a garment begins to unravel in the quiet. And in the darkness, they tremble, because dreams cannot be commanded. Nebuchadnezzar had everything: thrones, armies, builders to shape his cities and priests to praise his gods. But on that night, he was shaken by something no sword could silence, a dream sent from heaven. He did not understand it, but he feared it. And when the king of the earth fears, all who serve him tremble. He summoned his magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, the wisest men Babylon could offer. But he demanded what no man could give. Tell me the dream I dreamed, and then its meaning. They pleaded. No one had ever asked such a thing. Tell us the dream and we will interpret it. But he refused. Perhaps he sensed deception. Perhaps he feared manipulation. Or perhaps, though he would never admit it, he was beginning to believe that this dream came from a power beyond his empire. Tell me the dream, or die. That was his decree. And so the sentence of death was passed upon all the wise men of Babylon, including me. I had not been in the room, but the sword was already at my door. And still, I did not fear, not because I was brave, but because I had come to know the one who knows all things, and I believed, truly believed, that he who rules the heavens could also speak to a man in Babylon when the hour was dark. I asked Ariosh, the captain of the guard, to give me time, not to delay judgment, but to seek mercy from the God of heaven. I went to my companions, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. We did not strategize. We did not plot escape. We fell on our faces, and we prayed. O God of our fathers, you who revealed dreams to Joseph, you who made Pharaoh's heart tremble, do it again, not for our glory, but so that your name may be lifted even in this foreign land. And in the night, as I slept in the shadow of death, the Lord drew near. The dream was shown to me in a vision, not as a riddle, but with clarity, a great image, towering, terrifying, its head of gold, chest of silver, belly of bronze, legs of iron, feet of iron and clay, and then a stone, cut without human hands, struck the image at its feet. It shattered the statue, not piece by piece, but utterly. The stone grew and became a mountain that filled the earth. I awoke with breath caught in my lungs, not in fear, but in awe. The Lord had answered. I blessed the God of heaven. I lifted my voice in worship before I ever stood before the King. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are His. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells with him. With trembling yet confidence, I was brought before Nebuchadnezzar. He looked at me, a youth, a foreigner, a servant, and said, "Can you tell me the dream and its meaning?" And I answered, "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or astrologer can show the king the mystery he has asked. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." I made it clear, this was not my wisdom. This was not Daniel's brilliance. This was mercy. And then I told him, I spoke the dream, and I gave its meaning. The statue was a picture of the kingdoms of man. His own, Babylon, was the head of gold, great in splendor, but it would not last. Another kingdom would follow, then another, and another, until one day, A kingdom would rise, that was not made by human hands, a kingdom from heaven, unshakable, eternal. The dream is certain, the interpretation sure. I finished speaking. There was silence, the kind of silence that weighs more than words. Then the king rose from his throne and fell on his face before me. Not because of me, but because he had glimpsed the God of heaven, and for a moment, even Babylon bowed. He promoted me, gave me authority, position, honor. But I knew the truth. It was not I who stood above kings. It was God who reveals mysteries, and to him alone belongs the glory. I did not pray to be exalted. I prayed to be faithful, and in that faithfulness, God made himself known, even here, even now, in the land of exile. The light shines. The fire that did not burn. There are moments in life when a man must choose between being safe and being true. Babylon was always building. It built walls to display its strength, gardens to display its beauty, and statues to display its pride. This time, the statue was a god in gold, 90 cubits high, standing in a plain like a mountain of defiance, not a God of mercy or truth, but one made in Nebuchadnezzar's own image, fashioned from the dream he misunderstood. He had bowed before the revelation of heaven, but now he demanded that all bow before the image of man. It was a spectacle, trumpets and harps, flutes and lyres. The music swelled, and with it, the pressure. At the sound, fall down, worship, submit. It was a command dressed in pageantry, but at its heart, it was violence. Bow or burn, and there in that open field, my brothers stood. Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Men not afraid of flames, because their hearts were already consumed by a greater fire. I was not there. By providence or by the hidden wisdom of God, I was absent from that day. But I heard the reports. I saw the fury in the king's face. I saw the furnace stoked sevenfold, and I remembered the words we had once whispered together in prayer, even if he does not. That was the mystery of their faith. They did not bargain with God. They trusted him. When summoned before the king, they did not plead. They did not explain. They simply said, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your hand, O king. But even if he does not, let it be known to you, we will not serve your gods or worship the image you have set up." They chose the fire, not because they did not value life, but because they valued truth more. So the king ordered the furnace to be heated, hot enough to kill the guards who carried them in, and they were bound, thrown down, swallowed by the flames. But then, a cry from the king, not fear, but awe. "Did we not cast 3 men into the fire? But I see 4, unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and the 4th is like a son of the gods." The fire had loosed them. Not a hair was singed, not even the smell of smoke, because there was one in the flames who is greater than fire. one who walks with the faithful when the world burns around them. I did not see him that day, but I have seen his presence many times since, in lions' dens, in dreams, in the stillness of prayer. And I know this: the fire of man reveals the faithfulness of God. Nebuchadnezzar called them out. He praised their God, again, but only partially. His heart still wavered, but ours did not. That night, I looked into the eyes of my brothers. They had walked through fire, and they were different, not marked by fear, but by intimacy. They had walked with God, truly, literally. There are trials we avoid, and there are trials we endure. But then there are fires we choose, not because we are strong, but because we cannot betray the one who has already chosen us. And in those fires, we are not alone. The God of Israel does not always deliver us from the fire. Sometimes he delivers us in it. And when he does, even kings must fall silent. The madness of pride. There are visions that speak peace, and there are visions that thunder with warning. This one shook me. I remember the king's face as he recounted it to me, troubled, haunted, like a man who had seen his soul laid bare, but did not yet understand its meaning. He called again for his magicians, his interpreters, his enchanters, but the vision remained locked to them, like a door they were never meant to open. Then he summoned me. By then he trusted me. He had seen the God I served speak into darkness before, and as he spoke the vision aloud, I listened, not only to the words, but to the tremble behind them. I saw a great tree, tall and strong, its top reaching to the heavens, its branches sheltering beasts and feeding birds. The whole earth saw it. But then, a watcher came down from heaven. A decree was given: cut down the tree, strip its branches, scatter its fruit, let the stump remain, bound in iron and bronze, drenched with dew. Let his mind be changed from that of a man to that of a beast for 7 times. Even before he finished, my spirit was groaning. The dream was clear, too clear. And I sat in silence, not because I didn't understand, but because I did. And it pierced me. He looked at me concerned. Do not let the dream trouble you, Belteshazzar. Speak. I lifted my eyes to him, this mighty man of Babylon, a king who had seen glory, and yet did not know how fragile thrones are in the hands of the Almighty. My lord, I said, may this dream be for your enemies, but it is for you. The tree was him, majestic, feeding the nations, commanding the skies. But pride always builds its roots too shallow. The decree from heaven was not a suggestion. It was settled. He would be brought low, not by armies, not by betrayal, but by the hand of God himself. Driven away from men, made to live like the beasts, stripped of reason, until he learned the one truth Babylon never taught. The Most High rules the kingdom of men, and gives it to whomever he wills. Still, I pleaded with him. O king, break off your sins by practicing righteousness. Show mercy to the oppressed. Perhaps there may yet be a lengthening of your prosperity. I did not speak as a judge, but as a man who longed for mercy. I knew what the Lord had revealed, but I also knew this: repentance can delay judgment. For a time he listened, but only for a time. 12 months passed. The vision faded into memory. The warning was shelved. Then one day he walked upon the roof of his palace, looked out over the golden city, and said, "Is not this Babylon, which I have built by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" The words had not finished echoing when a voice from heaven fell like a blade. "O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom has departed from you." And just like that, his mind broke. The crown fell. The throne emptied. He wandered from the palace, unclothed, unreasoning, unrecognizable. His nails grew like claws, his hair like eagle's feathers. He lived among the beasts. A man turned wild, because his heart had grown harder than any stone. And yet, the stump remained, bound, preserved. God's judgment is never without hope. Even in madness, God remembers mercy. 7 seasons passed, and then, as suddenly as his reason had fled, it returned. He lifted his eyes to heaven, and with that upward gaze the restoration began. He praised, he honored, he declared, "All his works are right, and his ways are just, and those who walk in pride he is able to humble." The king who once demanded worship now worshipped, not because he was coerced, but because he had been remade. The tree was not replanted, it was resurrected, humbled, cleansed. He never looked the same after that. And I never forgot the fire in his voice when he spoke of the Most High. Some learn through dreams, others through deliverance. But Nebuchadnezzar learned through brokenness. I have seen kingdoms rise, and I have seen them fall. But only once have I seen a king go mad and come back praising. Because God is patient, and he still reigns, even over the minds of men. The night the wall spoke. There are nights that change history, not with armies or war cries, but with a whisper from the hand of God. This was such a night. The halls of the palace echoed with music and pride. Belshazzar, son Pos of Nebuchadnezzar, held a feast for 1,000 of his lords. They drank freely. They laughed loudly. They believed Babylon would stand forever. But Babylon was already dying. Outside its walls, the enemy had surrounded the city. The river flowed beneath us, but even rivers can be dried up. Even kingdoms that feel invincible can collapse in a single hour. Inside, the king grew bold with wine. Drunkenness loosens the tongue, but it also unveils the heart. Then he did something that made the heavens stir. He commanded that the sacred vessels, those taken from the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, be brought out. vessels consecrated for worship, vessels I had seen in my youth, vessels from the altar where fire once fell, and with them they drank. They toasted the gods of gold and silver, bronze and wood, stone and nothingness. They lifted their cups in mockery, not understanding they were lifting judgment. I was not in the hall when it happened, but I heard the silence that fell. The music stopped, the laughter ceased, because a hand had appeared. Not a man, not a magician, just a hand, human, yet not human, and it began to write on the plaster of the wall. No sound, just the scratch of divine letters etching into stone what had already been decreed in heaven. The king turned pale, his knees shook. He called for his wise men, his seers, his astrologers. They stared at the words, but understanding does not belong to the proud. None could read it, none could explain it. Then the queen remembered Mivon. She had seen what God could do. She had watched kings tremble and then learn to worship. "There is a man," she said, "in whom is the spirit of the holy gods. In the days of your father, light and understanding were found in him." So they called for me. One last time. I walked into that hall, older now, unimpressed, unmoved. The gold did not gleam as brightly to eyes that had once seen angels in fire. Belshazzar offered me gifts, a robe, a chain, a third of the kingdom. But what need have I for gifts from a kingdom about to fall? I looked at him, this proud king, who drank from holy vessels, and I said, "Let your gifts be for yourself. Give your rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing to the king and make known its meaning." But first, I reminded him of what he should have known. "Your father, Nebuchadnezzar, was great and exalted, but when his heart was lifted up, he was brought low, until he knew that the Most High God rules the kingdom of men and gives it to whom he will. But you, Belshazzar, have not humbled your heart, though you knew all this. Instead, you lifted yourself against the Lord of heaven. You brought his vessels to your feast. You praised gods that do not see or hear or know, but the God in whose hand is your breath, you have not honored." And then I read the words, simple, eternal, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin, and I gave their meaning. Mene, God has numbered your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Perez, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. I felt no joy in the telling, only the heavy hush of finality. Judgment had come, and it was just. That night, he clothed me in purple, placed gold on my neck, named me third in the kingdom. But what is a throne in the hour before collapse? Before morning came, Belshazzar was dead, and Babylon was no more. The city that had once claimed to reach the heavens was silent. The vessels of the Lord had been mocked, but the Lord had spoken, and his word endures forever. the lions and the light. There is no courage in me, only constancy. A quiet resolve formed long ago, not in the den, but in the prayer room. The world saw my survival as miraculous, but I saw it as expected, not because I am worthy, but because God is faithful. It began with promotion. Babylon had fallen. Darius the Mede had taken the throne, and by the mercy of God, I was found faithful again. They appointed me over governors and satraps, not because I sought it, but because I was known to be steady, not cunning, not flattering, just steady. And that constancy, that quiet devotion, angered many. I was not one of them, not of their blood, not of their gods. So they watched me, but not for corruption. They knew they would find none. We shall not find any charge against this Daniel unless we find it in connection with the law of his God. So they plotted, not to destroy me by lawlessness, but by law itself. They flattered the king, devised a trap, a decree signed with royal seal. For 30 days no petition shall be made to any god or man except to the king. Violation shall mean death by lions. It was not subtle. It was meant for me. They knew where I would be. They knew I would not bend. And when the decree was signed, I did not shout. I did not hide. I opened the windows, faced Jerusalem, and prayed. 3 times a day, as I had always done. Not in defiance, but in communion. Prayer was not my protest. It was my breath. They came quickly, accused me, dragged me to the king. And Darius, this man of pride, was pierced with regret. He tried to save me, but laws written in stone rarely bend for conscience. So they brought me to the mouth of the den. And he said, broken and desperate, may your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you. Then they sealed the stone. I heard the grinding. I felt the earth tremble. I smelled the breath of beasts, and I waited, but not in fear. There was peace in that pit. The lions stirred, but did not strike. Their eyes glowed in the dark, but there was no hunger in them. And then, a presence, not in form, not in fire, but in peace. He was there, the one I had prayed to. He sent his angel. He shut the mouths. He surrounded me with silence instead of screams. All night I waited, not for rescue, but for dawn. I knew he would come, because he always comes. In the morning I heard the voice, the same voice that had sentenced me. It cracked with hope. O Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God delivered you? And I answered with joy, O King, live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths. They have not harmed me because I was found blameless before him, and before you also, O King. They pulled me out. No wound, no scratch, not even the smell of death. But the men who accused me, they were thrown in, and they did not survive the fall. The lions remembered their hunger, and the king remembered his soul. He issued a new decree. In all my dominion, people must tremble before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, enduring forever. His kingdom shall never be destroyed. He delivers and rescues. He works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. I returned to my chamber. I knelt. I prayed, the same as before. Because the lions do not change who I am, God does. Visions of beasts and the eternal throne. I have faced lions in the flesh, but the beasts in my visions were more terrible still. They rose not from the desert, but from the sea. Not with fangs, but with dominion. I feared them, not because they could devour my body, but because they devoured nations and dared to war against heaven. It was in the first year of Belshazzar, when Babylon's throne had begun to tremble, that the Lord opened my eyes to a deeper truth. I lay on my bed, yet my soul was summoned into another realm, a great sea churning, storms without wind, chaos without order, and from its depths I saw 4 beasts arise, each unlike the other, each worse than the one before. The first, like a lion, but with eagle's wings, it soared with dominion until the wings were torn off. It was humbled, made to stand like a man, and given a human heart. The second, like a bear, raised up on one side, its mouth thick with bones, commanded to rise and devour more flesh. The third, a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads, swift and cunning. It was given rule, but it ruled by division. Then came the fourth. I have no name for it. No creature on earth is like it. It was dreadful, terrifying, iron-teethed and bronze-clawed, crushing all in its path. 10 horns crowned its head. Then a little one rose, speaking great boasts, full of defiance against the Most High. I trembled in my dream. This beast was not merely cruel, it was proud. It sought not only to rule men, but to challenge God himself. And then the heavens opened, thrones were placed, and one took his seat, the Ancient of Days, his robe white as snow, hair like pure wool, his throne, flames of fire, its wheels burning with light. A river of fire flowed from before him. Thousands served him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court sat in judgment. The books were opened, and I saw the beast judged, its dominion stripped, its body slain and thrown into the fire. Then, in the clouds, I saw one like a son of man. He came before the Ancient of Days, not trembling but in glory. To him was given authority, glory, and a kingdom. All peoples, nations, and languages shall serve him. His dominion is everlasting. His kingdom shall never be destroyed. I woke, sick in spirit, troubled in soul. I asked the angel beside me, "What is this?" He said, "These 4 beasts are 4 kings who shall arise from the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess it forever, yes, forever and ever. I did not fully understand, not then. But I knew this: empires rise, empires fall, but only one kingdom is eternal, and that kingdom is not of the beast. It is of the Lamb. It is given to the humble, to the faithful, to the ones who endure when the beasts rage. Even now I see them, rising in every age, boasting, warring, blaspheming. But I also see the throne, unmoved, unchanging, and the Son of Man. He has come. He will come again. Until then, I pray. I watch. I wait. Because no matter how loud the beasts roar, it is the Ancient of Days who writes the last word. The trampled sanctuary and the silent cry. There are visions that open the heavens, and there are visions that weigh like iron on the soul. The one I saw in the 3rd year of King Belshazzar did not come with fire, or wings, or lions, but with a quiet dread, the kind that creeps in when the spirit groans and men sleep unaware. I was taken in spirit to a place called Shushan by the Ulai Canal, and there, by the water, the veil was pulled back again. I saw a ram with 2 long horns, one higher than the other, both proud. It charged westward, northward, southward. No beast could stand before it. It was Persia, rising. Then from the west, suddenly, a goat, swift as the wind, with a single great horn between its eyes, came upon the face of the whole earth, and struck the ram with rage. The ram was trampled. The goat's horn grew stronger until it broke. In its place 4 horns arose. From one of them a little horn emerged, but it was no small thing. It grew exceedingly great, toward the south, toward the east, and toward the glorious land. But what pierced me was not its rise over kings, but its defiance against heaven. It grew tall. It cast down stars. It magnified itself as high as the prince of the host. It removed the daily sacrifice. It trampled the sanctuary. Truth was flung to the ground, and righteousness mocked. How long? I whispered. The words were not just mine. They echoed in eternity, and the answer came. For 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. But it was not the number that broke me. It was the weight. I could barely stand. My breath was shallow. My heart ached with what I saw. Then, I heard a voice calling from beyond the river. Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. And the angel came to me. He stood near, and I fell on my face trembling. He touched me gently and said, Understand, Son of Man, the vision refers to the time of the end. He spoke of kings, Medes, Persians, Greeks, of fierce rulers who rise in the latter days, of destruction, deceit, and pride against the Prince of Princes. But then he said, He shall be broken, not by human hand. I awoke, shaken, speechless, sick for many days. not because I did not understand the vision, did. The holy would be defiled, the sanctuary would fall, and the people of God tested. I longed not for clarity, but for comfort. I carried the burden in silence. There are things too heavy for words, too sacred for debate. So I wept, and I fasted, and I prayed, not for signs, but for the day when holiness would be restored. Because the sanctuary is not just a temple, it is the place where heaven and earth touch. The meeting of the eternal and the dust. When it is trampled, it is not stone that bleeds. It is the soul of a people. Yet even then, even there, a whisper remains. The sanctuary shall be cleansed. I do not know the hour, but I believe in the flame that never dies. And I trust the one who walks among the stars and counts every tear as sacred. The prayer that touched heaven. It was the first year of Darius the Mede. The empire had shifted hands, but the exile remained. Years had passed, so many years, yet still Jerusalem lay in ruins. Still the city of my God was desolate. Still the hearts of my people wandered, longing for home, but forgetting holiness. I had grown older in Babylon, but my heart never aged in its yearning. And one day, while reading the scroll of the prophet Jeremiah, my spirit was pierced with fresh fire. 70 years, he had written. 70 years until the desolations of Jerusalem would be fulfilled, and the time was near. But what stirred me most was not the timeline, but the mercy behind it. God had measured judgment. He had set a limit to sorrow. He had appointed a day for restoration. So I turned my face to the Lord God, not to demand, but to repent. I fasted. I clothed myself in sackcloth. I let the ashes speak what my lips could not. And I prayed, not with pride, not with eloquence, but with a broken and contrite heart. O Lord, the great and awesome God, who keeps covenant and mercy with those who love him, we have sinned. We have acted wickedly. We have rebelled and turned away from your commandments. To you belongs righteousness, but to us shame. We have not listened to your prophets. We have hardened our hearts. We are scattered because of our guilt. Yet still, you are merciful. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, act. For your sake, not ours. Do not delay, my God. For your city and for your people who are called by your name. I had barely finished my prayer when he came. Gabriel, the same who had once spoken to me in visions, but now he came in swiftness, not with terror, but with tenderness. He touched me, and he said, Daniel, I have come to give you understanding. At the beginning of your supplication, the command went out, and I have come because you are greatly beloved. Those words, I wept when I heard them, not because I had longed for affirmation, but because I had long doubted I was worthy of love. And yet, heaven called me beloved. Then Gabriel spoke of things I could scarcely fathom. 77s are decreed for your people and your holy city, to finish transgression, to put an end to sin, to atone for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. I listened, my spirit trembling. He spoke of the rebuilding of Jerusalem, of troubled times, of an anointed one who would come and be cut off, not for himself. He spoke of a prince who would destroy the city and the sanctuary, of desolation, of war, but also of a covenant, of one who would confirm it, and of one who would make sacrifice cease. These were not merely dates and decrees. They were birth pangs of redemption. Each week, a heartbeat of heaven, moving steadily toward the fullness of time. I fell silent. My prayer had been for a city. God answered with eternity. I asked for mercy on Jerusalem. He showed me the cross-shadowed road to salvation. Though my people were still in exile, I knew then God was not. His plans were not buried under ruins. His covenant had not expired. He was coming. The Anointed One. To deal with sin. To ransom many. To make righteousness everlasting. So I waited. With hope. With reverence. And with tears. Because when the prayer of a broken heart touches heaven, heaven moves. When the veil was lifted, it was the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia. The decree had gone forth. Our people could return. Some began their journey home, but I remained, not out of hesitation, but out of burden. For though the exile had ended in the eyes of men, I knew the deeper captivity was not yet broken. For 3 weeks I mourned. No rich food touched my mouth, no wine, no anointing oil. I ate little, slept less, and walked often by the riverbank, praying without words. My soul groaned for what I could not name. Then, on the 24th day of the 1st month, I stood by the great river, the Tigris, and the air shifted. The ground beneath me held still, but the heavens shook. I looked up, and I saw him, a man clothed in linen with a belt of pure gold. His body gleamed like beryl, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs shone like burnished bronze, and his voice like the roar of a multitude. I fell trembling. Those with me fled in terror, though they saw nothing. I alone remained, drained of all strength, face to the ground. Breath vanished from me like mist in the wind. Then, a hand touched me. It lifted me to trembling knees. He spoke. Daniel, man greatly beloved, understand the words I speak to you. Stand upright, for I have been sent to you. I rose, weak, quaking. He continued, "From the first day you set your heart to understand and to humble yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come because of them. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days, and behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me." My breath caught. There were wars I could not see, kingdoms rising and falling, not in palaces, but in realms of fire and glory. I had fasted, I had prayed, and while I mourned in silence, angels warred in the heavens. He spoke of battles beyond Babylon, of princes and powers, of Michael, Israel's guardian, and of a time still to come. Now I have come to make you understand what shall happen to your people in the latter days. For the vision is for days yet to come. As he spoke, I felt the weight of glory press against my chest. I could not breathe. I fell again, face to the earth. Another touched my lips. I opened my mouth, stammering, "My Lord, by reason of the vision, my sorrows have overwhelmed me. I have no strength." He touched me once more. Strength flowed where none remained. And he said, "O man greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be to you. Be strong, yes, be strong." And at his word, I was strengthened. The veil had lifted, if only for a moment. And I saw our prayers shake unseen thrones. Our fasting moves celestial armies. Our humility draws the attention of heaven. We do not war against flesh and blood, but we are not alone in the war. The Lord is not silent. His messengers are not idle. And though answers seem delayed, they are already in motion from the first whisper of faith. He left me with a promise and a burden. Visions would follow. Wars would rage. Kings would rise and fall. But I had seen enough to know. The kingdom of God is not hindered by Persia or Greece, not by delay, not by darkness. And the man in linen, he would return, in glory, in judgment, in triumph. Until then, I would fast, I would pray, and I would not forget that behind every silence, there is a war being won. The rise and fall of kings. He told me he would return, the man in linen, whose face was like lightning and eyes like fire. He said he would show me the truth, and then he did. What I saw was not a dream, but a revelat more precise than thunder. It did not come with symbols or beasts, but with names I could not yet know, kingdoms I had not yet seen, wars that would be born long after I was gone. He spoke, and history unfolded before me, not as men write it in pride, but as heaven sees it in truth. He spoke of Persia, of kings yet to arise. He named the fourth, great in power and pride, who would stir up all the earth against Greece. Then I saw Greece arise with fury, a single king, swift and dominant. His kingdom would shatter at its peak, divided to the four winds, but not to his own descendants. I watched nations rise from ashes. I watched empires splinter under the weight of their own ambition. Kings came and went like breath. Some were bold, others treacherous. They married off daughters for treaties. They broke covenants like bread. They moved armies across deserts, sent spies into banquet halls, and assassinated their own brothers. Their hearts were filled with pride, and yet they moved only as heaven allowed. What stunned me most was not their cruelty, but their insignificance in light of eternity. They thought themselves masters of time, but they were measured by moments. They thought their power could not be broken, but each one fell, and another took their place. Then I saw one rise who surpassed the rest in defiance. He shall exalt himself above every god, the messenger said. He shall speak astonishing things against the God of gods. He would desecrate the temple, set up the abomination that causes desolation, and trample what was holy. He would reward those who turned to wickedness and wage war against the covenant. And still, he would fall, not by human hands, not by sword, but by the decree of the Most High. All of it was written before a single battle was fought. The rise of tyrants, the fall of princes, the betrayals, invasions, coalitions, and rebellions. It was all accounted for in the scrolls of heaven. Not one act of arrogance was hidden from God. Not one nation's rise was outside his reach. And then I understood. What appears chaos on earth is choreography in heaven. The kingdoms of men shift like shadows, but the kingdom of God is unmoved. The faithful would suffer. The covenant would be tested. Many would fall by sword and flame. Some would stumble, but others would be refined like gold in fire. And in the midst of all this shaking, those who know their God shall stand firm and take action. I wept for what was to come, for the generations who would suffer, for the saints who would cry out under oppression. But I also saw their strength. They would not bow, not all. Some would rise, bold, holy, pure. They would teach many, even at the cost of their lives. And I knew then what it meant to be part of something eternal. The kingdoms of this world rise like waves and fall like dust, but the word of the Lord stands forever. He who reveals the future holds the future. And in that certainty, I found rest. Though kings rage and armies clash, God still rules above them all. And in the end, his kingdom will not pass away. Those who shine like stars. At the end, there was silence. The man in linen stood above the waters of the river, his hands lifted to heaven. The angel beside me whispered of what was to come. At that time shall arise Michael, the great prince who stands watch over your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. I trembled, not just for Babylon or Persia or the empires yet to rise, but for the time of the end, a time when the world itself would groan and every nation would be tested. But I was told, the story does not end with terror. But at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone whose name is written in the book. A book, a record, hidden in the heavenlies, known only to God. Even in the chaos of kingdoms, even in exile, even in martyrdom, He remembers. Then I saw something I did not expect. Many who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life and some to shame and everlasting contempt. I stood still. That word, awake, pierced me like lightning. There is a resurrection. The grave is not the end. Dust shall breathe again. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. I thought of my people, of the faithful exiles. They will shine. The world forgets such men, but heaven does not. The ones who seemed small on earth are giants in glory. Those thrown to lions, mocked and misunderstood. They will rise like the dawn, and I, Daniel, I was told to seal the book. Many would run to and fro, knowledge would increase, but the vision would remain hidden until the appointed hour. Still, I asked, how long, O Lord? How long until the end of these wonders? It shall be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the shattering of the power of the holy people comes to an end, all these things shall be finished. I did not fully understand, but I trusted. Some truths are not given to be grasped, only to be guarded. He told me again, go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white and refined, but the wicked shall act wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. Yes, the wise will understand, not with human reason, but with trembling faith. Then came the final word, but you, go your way until the end. You shall rest and shall stand in your allotted place at the end of the days. I will rest, and I will rise again, not as a prince of Babylon, nor as a prophet among kings, but as a son of the living God. I have seen lions silenced, fires quenched, kingdoms rise and fall. I have seen angels. I have seen glory. I have seen the beginning of the end. But above all, I have seen him, the Ancient of Days, the one whose kingdom has no end. And though I go to the grave in silence, I will rise with the morning stars. The vision is sealed. The dust will settle. But the King shall reign forever. Until the end of the days. I am old now. My bones are quiet. My voice, once summoned before kings, now echoes only in prayer. There are no visions tonight, no angelic visitors, no blazing fires or roaring lions, only silence and peace. I sit by the window, and the wind carries memories. Memories of Jerusalem, of Nebuchadnezzar's dreams, of stone walls and golden idols, of scrolls and secrets, of empires that once seemed immortal, now dust. I have outlived them all. The names of kings are etched into history's stones, but their thrones are buried beneath the sands. Yet the name of the Lord remains, unchanging, unshaken. He is the rock that smashes kingdoms, yet cradles the faithful in his hand. There were moments I did not understand his ways. There were nights I wept, fasted, pleaded. Sometimes heaven answered with thunder, sometimes only with stillness. But I have learned this. It is not understanding that sustains a soul. It is trust. Even now, I do not see the fullness of the visions. The time is not yet. The seals are not broken. But I know the author of the scroll, and I trust him. I remember his words, "You shall rest, and you shall rise at the end of the days." And so I wait, not in fear, not in despair, but in holy anticipation. This is not the end. The grave is not the closing chapter. One day I will stand again, not in Babylon, not before kings, but before the throne of the Ancient of Days. One day the wise will shine like the stars, and every tear, every exile, every unanswered cry will be swallowed up in the glory of his kingdom. Until then, I leave behind no monument, only words, visions, a trail of faith through the halls of empire. If they endure, let them point not to me, but to the one whose dominion is everlasting. Let them awaken sleepers. Let them strengthen the remnant. Let them prepare the wise. I go now to rest, and I wait for the trumpet, for the rising, for the day when the sealed book shall be opened, and the Son of Man comes in clouds of glory. Even so, come, Lord, come quickly.
If this message has blessed your heart, we invite you to like, share, and subscribe. Help us spread the light so that others too may find comfort, truth, and hope. Let's walk this quiet road of faith together.